Do you ever find yourself drowning in a sea of overwhelming responsibilities, where the weight of your worries feels like an anchor pulling you deeper into despair? Whether it's the constant noise of global unrest, wars, political strife, and pandemics, or the intimate battles you face at home, with relationships, finances, or health, the burdens you carry can seem insurmountable. It's as though every step forward is met with the resistance of a world that refuses to give you a moment of peace. These are not just fleeting concerns, they are the kind of deep-seated anxieties that gnaw at your soul, keeping you awake at night, your heart racing with thoughts of what if and why me. In a world that never seems to pause, where the demands of life pile up like an ever-growing mountain, it's easy to feel trapped, suffocating under the pressure. You may have even asked yourself, is this all there is? Will I ever find relief from this relentless stress? The statistics are staggering. Up to 70% of people visiting their doctors do so because of stress-related issues. This isn't merely a physical ailment, it's a spiritual and emotional crisis that affects every part of who you are. Stress has become a silent epidemic, eroding your peace of mind, robbing you of joy, and leaving you in a state of constant unrest. But what if I told you that this heavy burden you're carrying was never meant to be yours alone? In the midst of this chaos, Jesus extends a profound invitation, one that speaks directly to the deepest part of your being. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. These words from Matthew 11 verse 28 to 30 are not just a comforting sentiment, they are a powerful promise of deliverance from the very burdens that weigh you down. Jesus is offering you a way out of life where your soul can finally find the rest it so desperately craves. But what does this rest look like? It's not merely the absence of stress, but the presence of something far greater. It's the peace that comes from knowing you are not alone in your struggles, that there is a divine strength available to you that surpasses all understanding. It's a life where your worth is not measured by the number of tasks you complete or the burdens you bear, but by the love and grace of a Savior who sees you, knows you, and longs to carry your burdens for you. Think about the times you've tried to shoulder these burdens on your own, only to find yourself more exhausted, more anxious, and more overwhelmed. What if instead of trying to carry it all, you allowed yourself to let go? What if you could trust that there is a greater plan for your life, one that doesn't require you to be crushed under the weight of your worries? This is the life that God desires for you, a life of freedom, where you can breathe deeply and live fully, unburdened by the anxieties that once held you captive. It's a life where you can wake up each morning with a sense of hope, knowing that no matter what challenges you face, you do not face them alone. If this message speaks to the pain you've been carrying, if you're ready to experience a life where your soul finds rest and your heart is at peace, then stay with us. We're just beginning this journey of uncovering the depths of God's love and the freedom He offers. As we continue, take a moment to reflect on what you've heard. If it resonates with you, if you feel a tug at your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, leave a comment below, and share it with others who might be struggling under their own burdens. Together, we can spread this message of hope and healing to a world that so desperately needs it. Let's walk this path of faith and freedom together. Let me hear a blessed from you all. Imagine a life where the weight of the world is no longer yours to carry, a life where the burdens that once crushed your spirit are gently lifted by a Savior who offers not just relief, but complete rest. This is the promise that Jesus extends to us, a life unburdened by guilt, fear, and uncertainty. Yet, how often do we misunderstand this invitation, assuming that God desires us to be overwhelmed by the very struggles He wishes to free us from? The words of Jesus in Matthew's Gospel are a profound reminder: my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. But what does this truly mean for us today? C.S. Lewis, in his exploration of faith and reason, once posed a question that cuts to the heart of our human experience: why do we, who have so little power to control our own lives, insist on carrying burdens that were never ours to bear? Lewis reminds us that our struggles, our anxieties, and our fears are not meant to be handled alone. He calls us to consider the possibility that surrendering to God's will could be the very thing that brings the peace we so desperately seek. The Apostle Peter echoes this sentiment when he urges, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." But how do we do this in a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, promising temporary relief through distractions like substances, unhealthy relationships, or even our own self-reliance? The answer lies not in these fleeting solutions, but in a daily, intentional act of coming to Jesus, an act that requires humility, trust, and a willingness to let go. Step 1 in this journey towards burden-free living is not a complicated ritual or a checklist of spiritual accomplishments. It's simply coming to Him. But not just once. This is a daily surrender, a continuous invitation to let Jesus carry what we cannot. What burdens are you holding onto today? Perhaps it's the grief of loss, which Holmes and Rye identified as life's most stressful event. Or maybe it's the weight of a broken relationship, an uncertain future, or the guilt of past mistakes. Whatever it is, Jesus is ready to exchange your heavy load for His light one. C.S. Lewis once reflected on the idea of rest, not as mere physical relief, but as a deep, spiritual peace that comes from trusting in God's sovereignty. God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from Himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. This peace, this rest, is found only in coming to Jesus and allowing Him to be the source of our strength, wisdom, and comfort. So, the question remains, will you come to Him today? Will you let go of the burdens that are too heavy for you to carry alone? Jesus' invitation is clear: "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." It's not just a call to physical rest, but a promise of soul-deep peace. The first step is yours to take. Come to Him, not to the temporary fixes the world offers, but to the eternal solution that only He provides. And as you do, you'll find that the burdens of this life are no match for the rest He so freely gives. When we ponder the direction of our lives, we often find ourselves entangled in the expectations and paths set by others. Yet, there's a gentle voice, a beckoning call that reminds us to seek a different way, His way. Jesus invites us to take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Matthew 11 verse 29. But what does it truly mean to take His yoke? In ancient times, a yoke was a wooden crosspiece fastened over the necks of two animals, enabling them to pull a load together. As a carpenter, Jesus would have been familiar with crafting these yokes, ensuring they were a perfect fit, neither too heavy nor too light, but just right to ease the burden. In our modern lives, however, we often find ourselves burdened with responsibilities, worries, and decisions that weigh heavily upon our shoulders. These burdens can be self-imposed, born from stepping outside of the path God has set for us. C.S. Lewis poignantly remarked, "God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from Himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing." This insight aligns with the idea that true peace is found only when we align ourselves with God's will, taking on His yoke rather than the yoke of the world or our own making. Consider for a moment the decisions you face today. Are they guided by a desire to please others, or are they rooted in a deep desire to follow God's plan for your life? It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we must carry the weight of the world on our own, but Jesus offers us a different path, one that leads to rest and relief. C.S. Lewis once asked, "Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different?" This observation encourages us to reflect on our choices and the subtle shifts they bring in our lives. Have you ever noticed how the small steps of obedience to God, though they may seem insignificant at the time, accumulate to lead us to a life of greater peace and purpose? It's worth contemplating. Are you willing to surrender your burdens and take on His yoke? What areas of your life are weighed down by unnecessary pressures, and how might they be transformed by choosing His way instead? Remember, an ounce of obedience is worth a pound of prayer, as the saying goes. While prayer is vital, it is through our obedience to His commands that we often find the most profound sense of relief and direction. Let His yoke guide you, and discover the burden-free life He desires for you, a life where your steps are aligned with His, leading to true peace and rest for your soul. Imagine you're standing in the midst of a bustling city, your heart weighed down by the countless worries and responsibilities that life thrusts upon you. Each step feels like a monumental effort, as if you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Now, picture this: what if you could set down that weight? If only for a moment. C.S. Lewis once posed a thought-provoking question: isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different? This question speaks to the subtle, yet profound, transformation that occurs when we choose to surrender our burdens to God. Let's take a journey to Fifth Avenue in New York City, where a monumental statue of Atlas stands, his muscles straining under the immense burden of holding the world on his shoulders. This image, though powerful, reflects the way many of us lie struggling under the heavy load of our anxieties, fears, and expectations. But is this the only way? Now, consider stepping across the street into the tranquil sanctuary of St. Patrick's Cathedral. There, behind the altar, is a shrine depicting the boy Jesus, effortlessly holding the world in one hand. This serene image contrasts starkly with the strained figure of Atlas. It's a vivid representation of two distinct approaches to life: one where we attempt to carry our burdens alone, and another where we trust in God to carry them for us. C.S. Lewis, in his reflections on the human condition, often emphasized the futility of trying to control every aspect of our lives. He wrote, "God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from Himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing." This is a profound reminder that true peace comes not from our own efforts, but from entrusting our burdens to Him. Have you ever paused to ask yourself why you continue to bear the weight of your struggles alone? What if, instead of clinging to the illusion of control, you allowed yourself to experience the peace that comes from surrender? Jesus invites us to do just that, saying, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This invitation is not just a call to faith, it's an opportunity to live differently, to release the need to control the outcomes of our lives, and to trust that God will take care of the rest. So, what will you choose today? Will you continue to carry the weight of the world on your own shoulders? Or will you take that step of faith and place your burdens in the hands of the one who holds the universe with ease? Remember, the choice is yours, but the peace that follows is His gift to you. In the quiet moments of reflection, consider how Jesus, during His time on earth, lived a life of profound trust in His Heavenly Father. The weight of the world's salvation rested on His shoulders, yet He chose a path of serene reliance on God's plan. Imagine this: the entire future of humanity hinged on His mission, but Jesus never once penned a word or demanded His disciples to jot down His teachings. There were no scribes following Him, no recordings of His every word, yet His message endured. He entrusted this monumental task to a group of humble fishermen and societal outcasts, not to the influential leaders of the day. The church, which would grow to become a beacon of hope for billions, was born from the hands of those considered insignificant by the world's standards. C.S. Lewis once pondered the simplicity of Christ's approach, reminding us that the task is impossible on our own, but with God, all things are possible. Isn't it astonishing that Jesus, fully aware of the magnitude of His mission, remained untroubled? He entrusted the outcomes entirely to God, and in doing so, everything fell into place. His words were eventually recorded, His disciples carried forward His work, and His church flourished across the globe. What can we learn from this? Reflect on your own life, the prayers you've whispered in the dark, the questions that have troubled your heart, and even the mistakes that haunt you. What if, like Jesus, you could release these burdens into God's capable hands? Lewis challenges us to cast all our anxieties on Him because He cares for us. This isn't just a comforting thought, it's an invitation to live a life free from the heavy chains of worry. So, as you navigate your journey, ask yourself, are you holding on too tightly to the results of your efforts? What if you could trust that God, who orchestrated the spread of the gospel through unlikely messengers, is also at work in your life? Embrace the freedom Jesus offers. Step into His plan with confidence and leave the outcomes to the one who knows the end from the beginning. Remember, it's not about your strength or strategy, it's about His perfect will. And in that, there is peace beyond understanding. In reflecting on my journey through life, a constant refrain from my mother echoes in my mind, "Son, leave it to God." This simple yet profound piece of advice wasn't just a passing remark, it was her answer to every challenge I faced. Whenever I approached her with a dilemma, she would first inquire, "Have you prayed about it? Have you sought God's word on the matter?" If my answer was affirmative, she would respond with unwavering conviction, "Then leave it to God." This advice, seemingly straightforward, carries a depth that many of us overlook in our daily struggles. How often do we find ourselves trying to bear our burdens alone, forgetting that Jesus invites us to cast all our anxieties upon Him? How many times do we wrestle with our issues, attempting to solve them through our strength, without first seeking divine guidance, wisdom, or intervention? The question then becomes, what burden are you still clinging to that needs to be laid at the foot of the cross? What aspect of your life are you holding back from entrusting fully to God's capable hands? C.S. Lewis, a towering figure in Christian thought, once wrote, "Relying on God has to begin all over again, every day, as if nothing had yet been done." This statement resonates deeply when we consider the tendency to reclaim our worries after we've supposedly surrendered them to God. Lewis understood the human propensity to falter in our trust, reminding us that faith is not a one-time act but a daily practice. It's a continuous journey of leaving our concerns in God's hands, just as the Shunammite woman exemplified in the scriptures. Her story, found in 2 Kings 4 verse 8 to 37, is a powerful testament to unwavering faith. Despite the heartbreak of her son's sudden death, she maintained a stance of trust, declaring, "All is well," even before she saw the resolution of her crisis. This declaration wasn't a denial of her reality, but a profound expression of her faith in God's power to redeem even the darkest situations. But how do we reach such a place of steadfast trust? The Shunammite woman's faith wasn't passive, it was active and determined. She didn't simply accept her son's death, she sought out the man of God, Elisha, refusing to leave until she received the miracle she believed in. Similarly, Lewis challenges us to actively rely on God daily, to renew our trust continually, even when circumstances don't align with our expectations. This story invites us to question our faith. Are we truly leaving our burdens with God? Or do we take them back the moment we feel anxious or uncertain? The answer reveals much about the depth of our trust in God's sovereignty. In the end, the Shunammite woman saw her son restored to life, a miracle born out of her relentless faith and determination. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that when we truly leave our burdens with God, trusting in His timing and wisdom, we open the door to divine intervention. So, what will it take for you to leave your concerns fully in God's hands today? Will you choose to trust Him, as the Shunammite woman did, believing that all is well even when it seems otherwise? This choice, as Lewis suggests, must be renewed daily, for it is in this daily surrender that we find peace, hope, and ultimately, the miraculous hand of God at work in our lives. The tale of the Shunammite woman offers us a profound reflection on faith, hospitality, and divine providence. Her life, marked by acts of generosity towards the prophet Elisha, underscores the enduring value of kindness and the blessings it can invite. But beyond the surface of her benevolence, her story reveals deeper truths about the nature of faith and the power of divine promises. Consider this: how often do we extend kindness without expecting anything in return, only to find that such acts lead to blessings beyond our imagination? The Shunammite woman's story is a testament to this principle. Her willingness to offer hospitality to Elisha, even in the absence of immediate need or reward, brought about a miracle that would transform her life, a son she had longed for but never thought possible due to her advanced age. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted. In spite of your changing moods." This resonates deeply with the Shunammite woman's experience. Despite the apparent impossibility of Elisha's prophecy, she clung to the promise given by God through the prophet. In a world where logic might have dictated doubt, she chose to trust. Her unwavering faith, even in the face of adversity, mirrors the kind of faith Lewis speaks of, a faith that endures beyond the shifting tides of doubt and despair. When tragedy struck and her son's life was threatened, the Shunammite woman's immediate reaction was not to mourn or resign to fate, but to seek out Elisha, the man of God. But was it really Elisha she sought, or was it the God who had once given her hope? This is where her story takes a turn towards a powerful lesson. She sought divine intervention, knowing that true help comes from God alone. Reflect on this. How often do we turn to human solutions when faced with our deepest crises, forgetting that it is God who holds the answers? The Shunammite woman's actions remind us of the importance of taking our burdens directly to God, confident in His power to provide comfort and resolution in our darkest hours. C.S. Lewis also noted that God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. The Shunammite woman's pain was profound, yet it drove her closer to God, amplifying her faith and trust. Her story is a reminder that in moments of despair, our cries should be directed to God, for it is in these times that He reveals His greatest strength and comfort. In conclusion, the Shunammite woman's journey is not just a story of miraculous blessings, but a testament to the power of unwavering faith and the necessity of bringing our struggles to God. Her life challenges us to trust in divine promises and to seek God's intervention with the confidence that He will provide, just as He did for her. Life is full of days where challenges seem to come from every direction, like a storm that won't let up. You wake up ready to face the day, but from the moment you step out the door, it feels like you're walking through a battlefield. The commute to work is frustrating, the atmosphere at the office is tense, and when you finally return home, the sanctuary you longed for is disrupted by unforeseen difficulties. An unexpected bill arrives, or an argument erupts out of nowhere. It's as though every attempt to find peace or connect with God is met with resistance. You try to read the Bible, but the words seem distant. You kneel to pray, but your thoughts are clouded by the struggles of the day. Even worship music, which once lifted your spirit, now feels like another uphill battle. In these moments, have you ever paused to ask yourself, why is this happening? C.S. Lewis once wrote, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Could it be that these relentless battles are God's way of drawing you closer to Him, reminding you of your dependence on His strength? When the weight of the world feels unbearable, it's easy to feel like giving up, but that's precisely when God calls you to lean into Him even more. Psalm 55 verse 22 urges us to cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. But how often do we truly do this? It's one thing to acknowledge this verse, and another to live it out when life's pressures seem insurmountable. What would happen if, instead of wrestling with these burdens on our own, we genuinely laid them at His feet and trusted in His sustaining power? C.S. Lewis also said, "Relying on God has to begin all over again every day, as if nothing had yet been done. Each new day is a fresh opportunity to surrender your struggles to God, to trust that He is already at work in ways you cannot see." So, the next time you find yourself in the midst of yet another exhausting day, remember that you are not fighting these battles alone. God is with you, urging you to cast your cares upon Him, to find refuge in His unwavering strength, and to trust that He will carry you through, no matter how fierce the storm. In the quiet recesses of his soul, David often found himself crying out to God. His heart, like many of ours, was frequently burdened with fears, doubts, and the overwhelming weight of life's trials. It's no wonder that throughout the Psalms, we find him repeatedly calling upon the Lord, desperately seeking divine intervention. Consider how many times we encounter phrases like, "In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help." These words echo the deep, human need for reassurance and hope, a need that transcends time. But why is it that we, too, hesitate to call on God in our moments of distress? Is it pride, fear, or simply the disbelief that our cries will be heard? C.S. Lewis, in his Reflections on Prayer, wrote, "Prayer in the sense of petition, asking for things, is a small part of it. Confession and penitence are its threshold. Adoration its sanctuary, the presence and vision and enjoyment of God its bread and wine." Lewis reminds us that prayer is not merely a request for rescue but an intimate encounter with the divine, a sacred communion where our hearts align with God's will. Today, dear friend, I urge you to take that step into the sanctuary of prayer. Psalm 5 verse 1-2 provides a poignant example of this. "Listen to my words. Lord, consider my lament. Hear my cry for help, my King and my God, for to you I pray. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait expectantly." This is not just a call for assistance, but a profound expression of trust and surrender. In a world where control often seems elusive, laying down our burdens before God and waiting expectantly requires a faith that sees beyond the immediate. How often do we, in our worry, borrow trouble from tomorrow? As one wise pastor phrased it, we spend our days consumed by the what-ifs. What if the diagnosis is bad? What if the money runs out? What if the unthinkable happens? Yet Jesus, the name above all names, beckons us to live in the present, to trust in His provision today. C.S. Lewis once said, "Relying on God has to begin all over again every day, as if nothing had been done." This daily reliance on God, this refusal to borrow tomorrow's trouble, is the essence of walking by faith and not by sight. So, I challenge you today: will you let go of tomorrow's fears and embrace the blessings of today? Will you stop pondering the unknowns and start trusting in the one who knows all? For in Jesus there is power, light, and hope, a hope that is steadfast and sure, regardless of what tomorrow may bring. As you walk by faith today, may you find peace in the knowledge that God surrounds you with His favor, as with a shield. In a world fraught with uncertainties and challenges, how often do we find ourselves clinging to the illusion of control, only to be reminded of our own limitations? It is easy to be consumed by the weight of anxiety and worry, letting it dominate our thoughts and dictate our actions. Yet, in the midst of our turmoil, we are gently invited to shift our focus from our fears to the one who holds the universe in His hands. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "We must lay before Him what is in us, not what ought to be in us." This quote echoes the profound truth that God desires our honesty. He wants us to come as we are, with all our doubts and fears, and lay them at His feet. When we focus on our troubles, we often magnify them to the point where they seem insurmountable, and our perception of God's power diminishes in comparison. But have you ever wondered what might happen if we truly believe that God is as mighty as the Scriptures declare? Psalm 118 verse 24 reminds us, "This is the day that the Lord has made, we will rejoice and be glad in it." This verse is not just a call to happiness, but a call to trust, a call to recognize that every day, no matter how difficult, is ordained by God for our good. Lewis also said, "Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods, our circumstances. They are fleeting, they change like the wind. But God remains constant, unchanging, sovereign over all. He sees the beginning and the end, and nothing in between escapes His notice." When we allow fear to take root in our hearts, we are essentially telling God that we do not trust Him, that we believe our understanding is greater than His wisdom. Yet, God, in His infinite patience and love, invites us back to trust Him, reminding us that He is indeed in control. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. It would have been easy for Joseph to believe that God had abandoned him. But Joseph held on to his faith, trusting in God's greater plan. In the end, not only was Joseph delivered, but he was also elevated to a position where he could save his family and countless others. What if Joseph had given up? What if he had allowed his circumstances to dictate his faith? In Psalm 37, it is written, "I have been young, and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken." This is not merely a statement of observation, but a declaration of God's unwavering faithfulness. Even when we cannot see the path ahead, even when the waters are deep and the night is dark, God is with us. He is working all things together for our good, even when His methods are beyond our understanding. C.S. Lewis captured this beautifully when he said, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." So, when life feels overwhelming, and you are tempted to question God's presence, remember that He is in control. He has not forsaken you. He is right there in the midst of your storm, holding you, guiding you, and yes, even shouting to you through the very challenges that seem insurmountable. In the end, His plan is perfect, His love is steadfast, and His sovereignty is absolute. Trust in Him, for He knows what you do not, and He sees what you cannot. Worry and anxiety often disguise themselves as mere thoughts, but in reality, they are formidable adversaries that can cripple your spirit. These emotions can take control of your mind, leading you down a path of fear and uncertainty. Have you ever found yourself fixated on the what-ifs of life? What if you lose your job? What if your health deteriorates? What if things don't turn out the way you planned? These thoughts can quickly become overwhelming, consuming your peace and robbing you of the joy that God intends for you to experience today. C.S. Lewis, in his profound work, The Screwtape Letters, highlights how the devil subtly uses such worries to distract us from God's present blessings. He writes, "There is nothing like suspense and anxiety for barricading a human's mind against the enemy. He wants men to be concerned with what they do. Our business is to keep them thinking about what will happen to them." Lewis astutely points out that the enemy thrives when we are preoccupied with the unknown future, as it pulls us away from the immediate moment where God's grace is abundant. Are you allowing your mind to be trapped in the chains of what if, rather than resting in the assurance of what is? Jesus, in His wisdom, directly addressed this human tendency when He taught us not to worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. But how often do we genuinely take this to heart? How often do we miss the beauty of today because we're lost in the anxieties of an uncertain future? The key to overcoming worry lies in shifting our focus from the unknown to the known. God's unwavering love and provision. Instead of magnifying the if only or the what if, we should magnify the truth of God's promises. As Jesus reminded us in Matthew 6 verse 25 to 27, life is far more than the basic necessities, and our Heavenly Father knows what we need before we even ask. If God provides for the birds of the air, how much more will He provide for you, His beloved child? Lewis also invites us to reflect on the nature of faith in the midst of life's storms. He contrasts two types of believers: one who trusts God in the storm, and another who doubts God's presence because of the storm. Which one are you? The choice is crucial, as it determines whether you will walk in faith or be paralyzed by fear. The Apostle Peter urges us to cast all our anxieties on Jesus because He cares deeply for us. But do we truly do this? Or do we hold on to our worries, as if they are too great even for God? In Mere Christianity, Lewis discusses the importance of surrendering our will to God's, trusting that His plans are far greater than our own. He says, relying on God has to begin all over again every day, as if nothing had yet been done. This daily surrender is not a sign of weakness but of strength, as it aligns us with God's divine purpose and fills us with His peace. When we cast our cares on Him, we are not relinquishing control to fate, we are entrusting our lives to the One who loves us beyond measure. So, how will you face worry today? Will you choose to let it dominate your thoughts, or will you choose to trust in God's perfect timing and provision? Remember, as C.S. Lewis reminds us, faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods. Let your faith be steadfast, and let your heart be at peace, knowing that God is already in your tomorrow, preparing the way for you. Cast your anxieties on Him today, and watch as He turns your worries into wonders.